I was in medical school in the 70s, there was a throwaway journal that talked about a hospital in Norway
Mm-hmm.
that was treating people who came in with depression, either giving them our wonderful new brilliant antidepressants that we had just discovered in the 70s to treat depression, or an exercise program. And their results were the same. After 2 weeks, both groups became undepressed. And it was it was a report, wasn't really a good scientific study,
Mm-hmm.
but it was enough to pique my interest, and I realized my whole life I'd been exercising, and then how important it was for me to regulate myself,
Mm-hmm.
so that began a germ in my world to always pay attention to exercise.
All right, Dr. Ratey, thanks for coming on. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself in case they're not familiar with you or your work?
Yeah, I'm Dr. John Ratey. I'm from Cambridge, Massachusetts, Honolulu, Hawaii, and now Harrisville, Michigan. But I've been in Boston and at Harvard Medical School for the past 45 years, where I did my training in psychiatry and been an associate professor there ever since, doing multiple teaching around the world for Harvard and also for other people, and been very interested in first in aggression, then in attention deficit disorder, then in wellness. In the past 15 years or so, I've been lecturing all over the world about the benefits of exercise for our brains.
What got you into studying psychiatry?
I was always interested in how our brains worked, how not just our brains, but how we worked and how I worked, and I became a philosopher. My undergrad degree was in philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
and from that I became very interested in the psychological aspects of things, and so on graduation I began a career in psychiatry.
So you switched from philosophy to psychiatry?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
think the two fields like intersect in interesting ways? I know like people trying to study consciousness, it's like a big like overlap of both of them.
There's many overlaps from perception
Mm-hmm.
is a big overlap, and learning is an overlap,
Mm-hmm.
and knowledge, huge overlap, and then consciousness, which is, I just a word about that. I wrote a book called A User's Guide to the Brain, and there was
Mm-hmm.
a chapter on attention and consciousness, and I said there that at that time when I wrote the book in the late 90s, consciousness was really front and center. Everybody was trying to understand it,
Mm-hmm.
and there were all these books that came out.
Oh,
And,
I got this one right here. Oh, is
oh,
mirror
yeah,
image.
quick.
Yeah,
Yep,
this one.
yep.
It's
No,
super
that's it.
dense though, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I said I read all these books, and there were about 10 of them, and I said
Mm-hmm.
it, and when I was finished with each one, I believed them wholeheartedly. Um, you get trapped into, uh, the primary primary cause or primary belief, and they can extend that. But Francis Crick was a great one. Crick had a good way of explaining consciousness, which was
Mm-hmm.
attention times working memory,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I really loved. So, but
Yeah.
anyway,
And he tries to like narrow it down based on like visual awareness. What do you think about it though? Do you think there's like he says there might be like a specific neural correlate of consciousness? Do you agree with that? Do you think it's like a non-physical thing that somehow interfaces with our brain? Do you think what's your stance on that?
well, I think it certainly emanates from our brain, but
Mm-hmm.
whether or not we can find the neural consequence, what's his name? A philosopher and a hard neuroscientist who worked with Crick,
Mm-hmm.
um, had a bet 25 years ago that the bet was that they were going to find the neural correlate, but
Hasn't gone over
they
well, has
lost.
it? Yeah.
The neuroscience guy lost. So anyway, just interesting.
You said it was back in the 90s when there was all this like hype about consciousness.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was the
Hmm.
what was it? The conferences in Tucson. There was Tucson 1, Tucson 2, and I
Hmm.
believe there was a Tucson 3 where they gathered all kinds of people from every field, religion, woo-woo people, everyone went to Tucson, and I think the last half of the 90s, and people trying to understand consciousness and neuroscience-wise every which way.
Do you think we've gotten any closer since
No,
Descartes?
no,
Yeah,
no.
that's kind of terrifying. That since like Descartes sat down with like his piece of paper, like 400 years ago, and we're still same spot.
Yeah, I think therefore I am. It's pretty good.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and he tries to like reason the whole world out or something. But...
yeah. All the philosophers went from an initial condition to their total school, to total way of understanding the world.
My next question is, why do you? Another one of your big passions, as you mentioned earlier, was you're a big advocate for exercise. You've written a book about it. You're also a big advocate for exercise in everyone's lives. So my question is, how do you start getting into that advocacy? Why do you keep doing it?
Well, yeah, well, the advocacy, yeah. How did I start is interesting. I was in medical school in the 70s. There was a throwaway journal that talked about a hospital in Norway
Mm-hmm.
that was treating people who came in with depression, either giving them our wonderful new brilliant antidepressants that we had just discovered in the 70s to treat depression, or an exercise program. And their results were the same. After 2 weeks, both groups became undepressed. And it was it was a report. It wasn't really a good scientific study,
Mm-hmm.
but it was enough to pique my interest, and I realized my whole life I'd been exercising, and then how important it was for me to regulate myself,
Mm-hmm.
so that began a germ in my world to always pay attention to exercise, and
In one
then.
of, sorry.
And then when I got interested in aggression, I scanned the literature and began to very much get interested in attention deficit disorder. And so I began talking about that. And one day, a professor from Harvard and MIT, both very brilliant, well-recognized scholar, heard me talk about it just on the cuff and said, "Can I come see you?" And he told me he had developed attention deficit disorder in his adulthood after he stopped running.
Mm-hmm.
He stopped running because of a bad knee, so he was rehabbing it, and he said since then he has all the symptoms of attention deficit disorder. So I treated him, and his symptoms went away. He began to, he was rehabbing all the time, and about a year later he was back running, and we decided he didn't need his medicine anymore. His symptoms resolved around him, putting in his 7 miles a day, which is, one of the things that we recognized. So this started 2 careers for me, one in attention deficit disorder and the other in pursuing exercise as a treatment for emotional, mental, and eventually cognitive problems.
So the exercise decreased the ADD symptoms.
It took them away for him, and it doesn't do that for everyone, but it really has an impact on all of the 4 books that we've written about ADHD. heavily support the use of exercise.
Where do you think exercise lies in relation to pharmacological therapies? Do you think we could, so in him you said exercise was enough and you were able to take him off drugs. Do you think for some people they might want to do both? Do you think there are cases where pharmacological treatment might be the only way? How do you think they
I think
work together?
they can intersect certainly with attention and depression and anxiety and the psychiatric issues. Most of them will be vastly improved with exercise added on. Is it a replacement? It can be. It certainly can be preventive for anxiety problems and mood problems as well as attention problems. But I use medicine and usually it's certainly at the beginning and with somebody coming in who's depressed, unless they can really begin to exercise in a meaningful kind of way. And but both are sometimes necessary, and it depends on the person and depends on the level of their problems.
Have you found any specific kind of exercise more helpful than another, or has it not been studied enough?
Oh, it's been studied, but there's not. In the main, I would say that certainly aerobic exercise, meaning getting your heart rate up, is essential. Whatever you're doing, but yoga
is anaerobic still viable for all these benefits?
Oh yeah. No, well, anaerobic can go through aerobic to get to anaerobic, right? You get your heart rate is get up, and basically both types use your brain a lot, and that's the point. The secret really in Spark, my book, I talk about how our brains evolved to help us be the best movers. And that's why we were evolutionary victors. And so much of our brain is constructed around exercise, around movement, so that when you're moving, you're turning on, you're activating, you're making better all of our brain cells that are involved with thinking and knowledge, so that there's a definite interaction there.
I also want to talk a little bit more about your book, Spark, because in it you talk about a school from, I think it was Illinois, Naperville, right?
Naperville, Illinois, yeah.
And they enacted a policy, just for our listeners who haven't heard of it, they enacted a policy where students ran a mile on the track before school every day.
Well, it was more than that. That was just one. That was just one group that had problems reading in ninth grade, and they had a terrific. It was more than a mile. They ran, 30 minutes in the morning.
Oh dang, that's a workout, yeah.
Yeah, but the impact of Naperville was that they switched their whole PE program to focus on exercise and health, and getting kids really, really moving throughout the day. And eventually they discovered using the polar heart rate monitors and began to give their grades out with based on the amount of time the kids were in the heart rate training zone. So you had to get your heart rates up, and that meant you were putting in a good amount of exercise, whether it be even calisthenics, weightlifting, running, playing basketball, playing volleyball, whatever. You had to be in the zone, if you will, the training zone, to a certain percentage of time to get your grade.
You also mentioned in the book that the performance at the end of the school day versus right when they finished running. Right when they finished running, they performed better than at the end of the school day when they had a lot of time for the post-run high to wear off, or the post-exercise in general high to wear off. So, especially as a runner, I know that you get like this really euphoric sensation, and you can get into flow state very easily, and then over time it tapers off. How long do you think this high usually lasts, if there's a time at all?
Well, there's a difference between the high and just feeling okay and better, and feeling more positive, and looking at your motivation is higher, your mood is better, and that lasts. Especially if you're out there 5-6 days a week, you're going to change your whole brain and your whole inner feeling of mood, anxiety, attention. You're just going to be you're going to be more optimal. Harkening back to our hunter-gatherers when we were moving all the time, it was estimated we moved 8 to 10 miles a day, every day. So
we're not hitting those numbers anymore.
No. But even if you do your 10,000 steps, that's 4 miles a day. For most people. So, but still, it's not bad. Getting 10,000, and 10,000 is just a number, and lots of studies show that that's probably not necessary. That if you get 8,500 or 7,500, you're okay in terms of getting the benefits of exercise for mood regulation and for activating your thinking and learning nerve cells.
What does a sedentary lifestyle do to your body?
Do to your body, it's
your brain,
but it's the worst you can do, and this is the reason why we're into so much ill health in this country and around the world. I mean, it's a sedentary world with our wonderful devices that can put us in our seats all the time. So we gain weight, we get diabetes type 2, we elevate our blood pressure, make our moods more cranky and less positive, and we decrease our motivation. And so these all are problems of the current age.
Do you think we should, as a society, do you think we should be enacting policies to discourage sedentary lifestyles? Do you think it should be considered at all? If so, what policies do you think would be acceptable?
Yeah, in our current climate in politics, oh my God, you can't think of it.
That's beyond the scope of this episode. Okay, yeah.
You can't begin to think of doing anything positive. But anyway, no, that would be terrific to change the way all of us think about movement and exercise.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like pointing a gun to someone's head and going like, "Go run a mile." I think it was outlined somewhere that was not as effective as if they went and did it of their own free will. But
right, no, there's plenty of studies showing that if you go on your own rather than it's prescribed, it's so much better. However, what they also show is that if you're prescribed it enough and you get into it, that you will then pick up, oh my God, I feel so much better. And the people who study motivation in exercise, it's very interesting. They show that the best motivation is to remember how you felt the day that you exercise. You talk about having the euphoria. It doesn't have to get to be euphoric, but certainly your mood, in 95% of the people, your mood will be better after you exercise, and your day will be better. And for people to cement that in their consciousness, which is hard because everybody forgets how good they feel, but that's what you want to get to.
You said there's 95% of people get that positive effect. So would that mean there's a 5% non-responders?
Well, that don't have that positive feeling. Yes, there are some.
Mm-hmm. What do you think we should do in cases like those?
Shock treatment. No, no, no. I'm just kidding.
I was like, that's a little extreme.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I think we need to study it more. You know, is focus on them and really try to understand why not.
Do we have like some idea of like a biological correlate that leads to people being a non-responder, or is it just like a black box right now?
It's a black box. We don't know.
All right. I guess that's a avenue for future research then.
Yes, that's with all your neuroscience people that are in medicine.
Still work to be done. Yeah.
Oh, much work, and convincing, and especially as we move into AI and all that. I mean, you know, the people. One of the interesting things is the people who are discovering and changing the world and have changed the world are all exercisers. I mean, they you know, it's not like they absolutely write about it, but they do. When they do talk about their lives, you will find that they wake up and go biking or go swimming or go running, you know, to make their day better. And then
Sorry, you go.
No, go ahead.
I've heard Bill Gates is crazy at tennis. Oh yeah, I remember you also played tennis, right?
Yes.
I read off your website, yeah.
Yes. I played tennis until then I switched to squash in medical school and thereafter, because it was a much shorter time course than playing tennis.
I feel like squash is pretty big at the university. Like I see a lot of squash courts, way more than like outside of universities.
Yes. And that's because they're shorter time and it is really hugely 45 minutes of high aerobic exercise, you know, because you're moving all the time.
I also want to talk a bit about your other book, Go Wild. I think you talked about it. We touched upon it a little bit already. Our bodies were adapted for a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, and in the modern world, that's just not how we live anymore. So, do you think you could tell our audience a little bit more about your book, what you talk about in that book, especially the issues that you present?
Yeah, no, it's basically a way to look at wellness through the eyes of evolution. Why we were so much better if we follow the dictates of wellness. If we exercise, if we sleep correctly, if we eat the right kind of diet, if we are connected to others in a meaningful way, and if we are constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly being involved with a passion. Those are the real dictates, as well as being in nature. You know, the biophilia need. We have these needs to be moving and to be eating right and to be sleeping enough and especially to be connected to others. Such a huge benefit we get. And Go Wild sort of lists all these and looks at them from an evolutionary and biological perspective.
It's also picked up steam online in the past few years. I'm not sure exactly how much of it is inspired by your work, but a fair amount of it probably is. There have been a lot of like gurus online telling younger audiences to go outside more, hike more, form a social circle.
Well, that's great, and I would hope that obviously it's having some kind of impact, but you know, in our world today, we're in serious trouble, and we have to really change things. So, yeah.
It's good though, like when someone on the internet tells you to get off the internet, go take a walk. Probably the best thing that YouTube can do.
Yes.
Yeah. You wrote Go Wild in 2013, I think. 2013.
Yeah,
So
something like that.
it's been 9 years since then, almost a decade. Do you think the past 9 years have challenged or supported anything you've presented in your book?
Well, I think all the anti-aging people have adopted. I mean, it's not that we discovered each of these
Mm-hmm.
wellness dictates, but more and more people are using the wellness interventions in their own lives, just as you mentioned, forming social groups, exercising outside, playing, paying attention to diet and sleep, and I think it's for sure confirmed. I mean, one of the big things that is happening today is pickleball.
Mm-hmm.
Pickleball, especially among the elderly. Oh my
Oh,
God!
yeah.
You can't get a court, and which is amazing. And the reason being is that it is exercise. It mainly is outside, and it's all social. And that is really the key to, and the
It's like
key to wellness.
a cocktail for all those good things.
Yes.
I've also noticed there's a good part, another good thing the internet has done for all its flaws. It's encouraging a lot more young people to get into weightlifting. Like this, it's blowing up bigger than it's blowing up more than like any time before.
Yes. Well, that's great. Just any kind of attention to getting our bodies healthier will
Mm-hmm.
make a big impact on our brain.
So I think you already listed some things that our bodies need that the modern world deprives us of, like social connection in some aspects. There's a lot of nature that we're not getting, a lot of physical activity that we're deprived of. Is there anything else in particular aside from those big
Well,
pillars?
I think our diets are all perverted, right?
Oh.
And yeah, and that's an important, important and telling problem. I think what's
Mm-hmm.
nice is that a lot of people are aware. Oh, I don't want to eat carbs. I want to. And it's not eating carbs. It's reducing the dependence on carbohydrates because we get too many in our diet, and especially in all the junk food that we eat. I mean, it's complete carbohydrate, and that leads to, an ill health in our bodies.
I feel like there's a healthy balance to be found as well. It's impossible to cut out burgers entirely, but
Right,
just the overall trend.
right.
You also talk in that book about living more like our ancestors, and I assume that there are some things our ancestors did that we can't go back to. Like AC is pretty nice, but what are some ways in which we can feasibly live more like them, and without like when you say live more like our ancestors, what are some things in what are some ways in which we can do it feasibly?
Well,
Yeah.
we've already listed them. I mean,
Yeah.
and a big thing is to, and the nice thing that has occurred not just with pickleball, but with all kinds of exercise. They're exercise groups, so you begin to get a whole bunch of things together, the
Hmm.
social aspect as well as movement and all to support one another and connect to one another, and all that is so important.
There's been a big trend lately of going to the gym in groups as well. Like,
Yes.
a lot of kids, we got like our gym bros. Like I got some guy. I always go. We keep each other accountable. It's great, Kind of
And
like the pickleball.
yes, and supportive, and the explosion of interest in things like CrossFit is not just about building and getting buff. It's about getting
Hmm.
healthy and getting connected. The nice thing about CrossFit is that people learn about the importance of being connected to
Oh yeah.
one. Yeah.
CrossFit's blown up. Like
Yeah.
all this weightlifting stuff, it used to be like really niche, but I saw it on like TV. It's everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Generally a good trend though, right? Because
Oh,
more
absolutely.
people get into it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thank you for coming on. It's
Well,
been a pleasure talking to you. Yeah.
thanks for having me,
It's been a
and good
lot of
luck.
fun.
Good luck with your mission, because I support it, and love the fact that there is a generation now and coming
Mm-hmm.
who are interested in our brains and health.
Yeah, gotta pick up that torch, keep on
Yeah,
carrying it.
yeah.
Yeah.
We need people to move it forward. So,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. It's been a
Okay.
pleasure.
Okay.
All right. Have a
Bye.
great day.